So, what does it take to turn a calling into a movement? Today's guest started with a passion for psychology, adoption, helping vulnerable children and families. What began as a one-person practice in 2015 has grown into Heartbonds Counseling, a thriving group practice of more than 20 counselors united by one mission: providing compassionate, ethical, accessible mental health care so every person feels valued, heard, empowered, and capable of healing. Joining me today is Stacy Greenberg. She's a licensed clinical social worker, licensed marriage and family therapist, qualified supervisor, and owner-operator of Heartbonds Counseling. With more than 15 years of experience, Stacy has dedicated her career to helping individuals, couples, and families discover their worth, strengthen relationships, and heal from life's most difficult experiences. Her expertise spans adoption and foster care, adolescents and young adults, couples therapy, trauma, depression, anxiety, family dynamics, spirituality, older adults, and much, much more. She has advanced training in cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, trust-based relational intervention, clinical hypnotherapy for trauma, sensory, motor psychotherapy, Gottman couples therapy, and emotional focused couples care therapy. Today, Heartbonds serves individuals from ages 4 to 100, offering care to people from every background and making therapy more accessible through a diverse team of specialists and multilingual services. But this episode isn't just about credentials or buildings or successful counseling practice. We'll get to that. It's about following a calling. It's about taking risk when the future isn't guaranteed, leading with faith instead of fear, building a culture where both clients and clinicians can thrive, and creating something that impacts far more people than you could ever reach alone. Whether you're a therapist dreaming of private practice, a student entering the mental health field, a practice owner looking to grow, or someone simply searching for hope and purpose, I think you're going to take something today from this meaningful conversation I had with Stacy. So settle in, buckle up. This is a conversation about healing, leadership, resilience, and what happens when compassion becomes the foundation of everything you build. I'm Keenan. This is Rooted in Real. Welcome, my supervisor, Stacy Greenberg. All right. So let's kick things off, Stacy. How did all this get started? Like every good story, it's good to start from the beginning. So Stacy, what is your story?
Was always very interested in people and psychology. I had this book when I was a kid on psychology that was really cool and interesting. I remember I did a science fair project on psychology. So I was always interested in that. And I was always also interested in adoption. So my mom is adopted. And when I would play with my Barbies, which was a lot, I would usually have a Barbie orphanage or someone would be adopted. And so these are some interests of mine from when I was very small. And then when I got older and I went to college, I decided to major in psychology and in English. And I'm not really sure what I thought I was going to be doing, but I thought I was going to hopefully make a lot of money. That was kind of part of my plan. Yeah, exactly. But somewhere during college, I sort of went through a spiritual experience and awakening, and my priorities shifted. And I became less interested in making money and more interested in helping people. And back at home, when I would go home during the summers and after I graduated, I made friends with a family that was foster parents. And so they were fostering a child from the local Native American reservation that we have up there. And it was sort of I just realized that was what I was meant to do. So I felt very called to that. And then I ended up moving to Florida, and within a month, I was able to get a job working as a foster care case manager in the adoptions department. And I mean, that's pretty amazing actually for some young person with no real experience in that field. And I did that for 5 years, and I loved it so much that I went back to school and got my master's degree in social work during that time and spent a little time working in the adoptions world. And I also started doing a little bit of like therapy on the side because as a social worker, you can do that. And then I think I just had this idea that maybe I would like have this adoption focused group practice. So two things. One, I had a friend who was moving here after college. I mean, and okay, three reasons. One, I didn't want to live in Syracuse anymore because it's like, no offense to Syracuse, it's just kind of gray and cold. Yeah. Two, I had a friend moving to Florida after college, so I thought that would be cool. And three, in Florida, unlike in New York, you can work in foster care with just a bachelor's degree in something like psychology. In New York, they make you like already have your master's degree in social work, something like that. So, yeah, you know how Florida.
Okay, but you moved to Florida all by yourself. That must have been kind of scary, right?
It was super scary. Also, because this job, these types of jobs were not willing to interview me and consider hiring me when I had a New York address. So I was going to have to move to Florida without the job in order to get the job. So, I was like 22, 23. I had $2,000 in savings. I had a futon mattress and a Toyota Corolla and a friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I prayed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a vision. I mean, it even actually turned out to be a lot like my vision. I had this vision of me sort of like in this harried, frenetic office, like running around, like being stressed, like lots of paperwork, people really needing help, inspiration, but also like stress. And it was like exactly like that.
So was it like
Yeah, I didn't know the exact like practice that I wanted to be at. I just knew I wanted to work like in the foster care system. And ideally in adoptions, which ended up being a much better role than like just in a regular case manager role. Because it's a lot like happier. You get to like see positive outcomes for people. Not that adoption always ends happily, as I have learned throughout the many years. But
So would you say like if how would you find that?
yeah, especially as a therapist now, I end up doing a lot of work with not just people who are adopted, but people also considering adoption. And I mean, there are different ways that adoption can work, whether that's domestically, privately, through the foster care system, internationally. But I think when people adopt through the foster care system, they need to understand that these are kids that have experienced trauma. Like they're not going to be there if they haven't experienced some kind of trauma. And so people need to not think like, oh, I'm going to step in and like save this kid because like all they need is love. Because like someone who has had severe trauma in their early years like needs more than just.
So I mean,
yeah, I mean, my parents tried to talk me out of it basically like a couple weeks before I left and everything was already set. Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, it's kind of too late. Like I'm going now. Yeah.
well, there wasn't argued.
I always listen to everything everybody says and doubt myself, but I persisted. Yeah.
So have this job. You're doing that now.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm working at the job. It's great. I mean, it's hard, but it's great. I go back to school at UCF, right? So you can, go Knights. This room is so black and gold. Yes, exactly. Yes, go Knights. So get my master's in social work. I'm still working in the foster care system. So I think now that I have my master's degree, maybe I'll go work at a private adoption agency. I did that. That was interesting. Yeah. Yeah. If anybody I know watches this who worked there, they'll know what I mean. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Leave it in the comments. Yeah. But there was some stress being at this private adoption agency. Okay. And so I got a part-time job because I thought, working some more would help. Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I start seeing a couple clients on the side in a private practice. And when you're a social worker, they don't really teach you in school like as much about being a counselor as they do in a counseling program. So there was a little bit of like, let me see if I like this, I did like it and people seemed to like meeting with me and it just kind of like ballooned out from you eventually. Well, it kind of grew. So I was at the adoption agency and I was doing this private practice. And then I had the opportunity to leave the adoption agency and go work in a community agency doing counseling. Okay. So I was working at a community agency doing counseling, and I was working in the private practice doing counseling. And my focus was still a lot on adoption and foster care. So at the community agency, I was working with foster kids. In my private practice, I was working with adoptive families. And I thought, this is actually a really great way to help adoptive families because, like I said, when you're raising a child that's had a lot of trauma, people don't always know how to handle that. So if you get good counseling, it can kind of help with that. And it just felt like a, a great next step with what I was doing.
So that was
Yeah, or like kids that had been adopted or were getting adopted. Yeah, yeah. So I'm working at two places. One, I have my own private practice. I'm like in a counseling group, and one, I'm at the community agency.
in really.
Right. Well, yeah. So I think there was some part of me that was like, since I knew that helping these kids and families was my calling, I wanted to make sure that if I was doing counseling, that I was still supporting. So once I figured out that that actually was a good way to support them and was actually necessary, I think I felt more comfortable kind of transitioning. And also, I felt like I was doing more good there than I was at the adoption agency.
Yeah.
And logistically, what happened was when I was at the community agency and at the private practice, I was also kind of doing some contract work somewhere else. That's sort of like as an aside. But it all, like the private practice cases were increasing, So it got to the point where it was really hard to do all of the work that I was doing. And transitioning just to private practice is kind of scary, right? Because there's no benefits. Like you're working for yourself. If you have a bad client week or month, like are you making enough money to support yourself? But it felt like the right thing to do. And I was having enough clients. And so eventually, slowly, I pared down. I was part-time at the community agency. And so eventually it got to the point where actually, I think what happened was I took on a supervisee at my private practice. And so I was like, I'm going to have to leave these other places to have enough time to focus on myself and also my supervisor.
No, I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there was ever really a time, and that's true now too, where I didn't work with some aspect of it. I mean, I don't only work with adoptive kids and families now. And, when we get into the spoiler alert, like group practice, not everyone here works with that population, but there's never been a time when I haven't been in that world involved, have some kind of client or clients that are part of that. And that's true now too. So I, I didn't really have the opportunity to miss it because I was still involved in it. But I guess, some part of me sort of misses the aspect of being on the front lines of like the system, except that also that's very stressful. So I don't. Yeah, exactly.
okay. So you are.
Yeah.
So I want more like what the
Yeah, I think, yeah. And I think, like I said, there is some big support in helping people with trauma that is gotten through therapy that's not achieved through case management, you know?
like
Yep, definitely. Uh, Going back to what I said before, I took on my first supervisee and I was like, let me see how this goes. And I mean, she had worked in adoption too, actually. So I would get clients when I was full, and then I would sort of pass some of the clients along to her and supervise her. And that was really cool. I enjoyed that a lot. And so then I took on another supervisor. He didn't really work in adoptions, but I was like, this could be cool, right?
Okay.
And he worked in some other things that I had learned about at the community agency. He worked in dialectical behavior therapy. Well, so it's like the combination of cognitive and behavioral therapy. So like changing your thoughts and changing your behaviors, but also with this like mindfulness component and skills component. Yeah. So, but it basically helps people it helps all kinds of people, but it helps people that have more severe kinds of problems that sometimes are needing hospital.
So that's what this supervisee mainly did was DBT or dialectical behavioral therapy.
Yes. Yes. DBT. So I was supervising them. And then before I kind of realized I had a little group practice.
Okay.
And so it was three of us. And in the space where I was, I like asked to rent out another office, and then I had another supervisee. Yes, it was definitely like a lot of word of mouth and connection, which is mostly how I bring people on now too, which tends to work out well. But yeah, it was sort of like people kept finding, and I don't. I mean, I could have said no, and I have said no to people over the years. You just can't take on everyone. But I guess at this point, because I'd left my other job, I had some like time on my hands and some energy on my hands, and so okay, so let me think. This started like around 2018. So in 2018, I was 33, 34. Yeah. And it was great. I loved it. It worked. Um, well, I definitely felt like I could help more people this way because, if you're a therapist, you can help however many clients you can see. You can burn yourself out trying to see more, but I think the statistical number that they say is like the average number that people get burnt out around in terms of how many clients therapist sees weekly is 28. So let's say maybe you can help 28 people a week. I've seen more clients than that. I think you've seen more clients. But yeah, that's like, the statistical number. So if I was seeing a certain number of clients per week, but I also was helping supervisees see a certain number of clients per week, then I'm helping more people, right? So that's cool. And then it was also, I learned how to take insurance. So I was taking insurance and I could help my supervisees take insurance. So then we were helping even more people, right? And we were taking Sunshine Medicaid. That was like one of the first insurances that I took because the kids that were adopted through foster care had that insurance. So that's how we started taking Medicaid and things. It's hard to remember back in retrospect how it all happened, but it just seems to kind of like grow a little bit more and grow a little bit more. And then, the snowball's rolling down the hill and like it's picking up more snow. And then it's like, oh, no, I don't really think I felt that way. I, I think there was a point, maybe it's similar, where I think this was before I took on supervisees. There was a point where I thought kind of like, I'm a little bored. Like, I wonder what's next for me. Like, what should I do? Yeah. I mean, I think after a certain amount of time having been licensed, you can become a qualified supervisor. And then I had my friend Daniel, who was like, I'm going to take this qualified supervisor training. Like, do you want to take this with me? And I was like, yeah, that could be good. Right. Yeah. And once I brought on my supervisee and she started taking cases, I was like, I think I had this sense of like, oh, this might be what's, yeah. So for reference, right now, my practice, Heartbonds Counseling, I think has 22 counselors at it. So we've grown from one to like, you know, 22 times more than that. Yeah. And it's been, well, so 2018 and now it's been 8 years. So it's been quite a process. There definitely been some ups and downs. Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. Definitely takes a lot of faith, right? Faith, faith in like God and or your higher power, whatever you sort of believe in outside of yourself, if you believe in something outside of yourself. And also I think like faith faith in a vision, you know? Now for me it wasn't like I envisioned one day I'm gonna have food access to 2 counselors and, like 10 offices, whatever. Like it wasn't like that. It was more just this vision of like, I really feel what I'm doing is right. So far up until this point, like my steps tend to be leading me in the right direction, like, and that has worked out. I think like faith is part of it in some ways because like when I moved into this current office space, I didn't have, there's like 6 offices in my original space that I moved into. I didn't have 6 counselors in the practice. So I had this faith of like, I'm going to be paying a certain amount of rent for space that I'm not bringing in all of the business for yet. It's kind of that, like in that movie Field of Dreams. Did you see that? Where he says like, if you build it, they will come. Yeah. So it was kind of that faith of like, I think this is right. Like, I believe this is right. So let me like take on this risk and like see what happens. And I think like you have to have a certain amount of like, I mean, I think of myself as a risk averse person, but there's a certain amount of risk tolerance you have to have and like faith that your risks are going to be.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, again, yeah, faith, prayer, support of people like in my life, right? Like mentors, other people who had done it, people who were like, I've got your back, like that was helpful. And I think like as I've grown, having resources to help me has helped. Like there have been times, for example, where I had to like float the business with my own money when we've gone through difficult seasons, like now I've built up to a point where I can do that. But I think anyone can do something like that if they have like supports or people who are willing to help them, or they can reach out like for grants or, there's different things. I think you have to be resourceful, right? But I really don't think anyone can do everything completely on their own. Like you need people and supports and communities and places where you can lean on them because this is hard to do all on your own. Yeah, super important. I've had a lot of like good mentors over the years. I have a lot of good colleagues. I have some other colleagues who are like group practice owners now and other therapists who are colleagues. I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to do it without them. It can be lonely being a therapist or a private practice therapist or a group practice owner. So I think that's really important. Yeah. Yes. And now I do a little bit of like coaching of people who are thinking of building up their own practices. Because I think I've learned some things along the way and I know like how beneficial that is. But yeah, I connect with other people who do that too. I think I I go to some like conferences sometimes too of people who are doing this kind of stuff. So I think that stuff can really help.
So,
Yes. I think networking is really important also for getting clients for your group practice. If you have 22 counselors that you want to like help get clients, networking is probably pretty important.
so like, what is your
I think so. For me, yes. I like to let people know about my practice, that I'm here, like who I am, right? Because the character and the person of the owner sort of like filters down through the practice.
right?
I like to tell people we take all the insurances because I think that makes us stand out. We have a in-person practice that's got a very central location. So like the more people I can kind of connect with and let them know who I am and who we are, like the better it is. And then of course that works both ways too with the networking and the referrals because even though we have a big practice, we get full or people don't have specialties or whatever. And so
Right.
it's good for us to know people too. But yes, you're a good networker too. So you understand. Yeah.
A wider.
Yes. And I'm surprised sometimes, like, I hear from people sometimes and I'm always surprised by it, though I don't know why. But like people I know are like, oh yeah, I like always refer people to you, or I always refer my couples that need someone to you, or I always refer like my Medicaid or my Medicare people to you. And I'm always like, thank you. I didn't know that's where all these people were coming from. So like, thanks.
So do you?
Yeah. I mean, you can't be like, hey, like Mr. and Mrs. Smith called the other day. So like, thanks for referring them to me. Right. Because then you're like breaking confidentiality. And you certainly can't like pay people for referrals or like shouldn't be giving them like Starbucks gift cards or something, like that's not really ethically allowed. But once I hear from people that they're sending referrals my way, like I thank them and I'm very appreciative. And, you know, I think to me at least, and I hope to other people too, it's not just about the tangible benefits or, like certainly not just about like the money that comes from it. That would be very transactional. So to me, it's about the relationship and therapists are relational people, so to me, I think if we can spend genuine time connecting and like, my heart, my character, and I know yours. And that means sometimes we're going to send clients because we care about where we send people and like helping people, then I, I think that's like the best possible outcome. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's a funny business that way, right? And of course, like at 22 counselors, I do have to think about money and business and profits and spending and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, my goal is to help clients, but also like help the counselors that come and work for me.
Yeah.
Like it has always been so important for me that my practice be a safe space for clients and for counselors. I mean, for me too. And I think I have had people say that they they feel that way here, which always makes me feel, mm, yeah. I mean, I think there is definitely a good amount of like bleeding together. I'm not great. No, I run the practice. I'm not great at like, I'm going on vacation. I'm going to like not pay attention to the practice at all. I do have, now that we've existed for a while, I do have other licensed people here now. So that's really helpful if I'm not available, that I have help from people. Send out, lots of policies and protocols about things like that all the time. So that helps. I think, I got married this year, right? Thank you. So I think I'm mentoring into probably like a new chapter of family life and keeping some, maybe a little bit more distance between my personal life and my professional life. But I think there's been a blessing in that too, because I've been able to focus so much of my energy on the business and practice the whole time. But yeah, I think mentally, emotionally, need to have some compartmentalization skills to be
Yeah.
right. And our clients really need our help, right? And when you run a group practice, your clinicians might really need your help. It's like maybe their clients aren't doing well. There's a lot of layers to it. And I have always been someone who sort of likes to have a lot on her plate. So it, it doesn't tend to bother me too much. So it does bother me. There are times where it bothers me when I feel like I'm giving a lot and sort of not not getting appreciated. But then, that's probably like my own person.
So it's like your time.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And I like it and I'm comfortable with that role. But yeah, like, so I've told you so much of my whole story now. I don't think I ever really set out to be a leader. That's sort of like the interesting part of this story. Like, I mean, there might have been times where I sort of had this like far off vision of like, it'd be cool to have group practice. I don't think I thought I was going to actually do that. I don't think I pictured like what this has become. So at times I feel kind of like a reluctant leader, because it's like there's so many responsibilities and things that are part of that. But I think it's more just like I saw I saw a need and stepped into it.
Yeah.
And we'll see where that kind of leads.
No, I mean, what would they?
Well, I don't really I always say I don't really feel the need to grow the practice more, but that being said, it's possible the practice will grow a little bit more in the following years. My husband and I may be interested in growing a family, so we'll see what that would look like, doing that and running the practice at the same time. I know, like, you never really know how you're going to feel, but I sort of picture myself still having the practice and having a family. But we'll just see. The landscape is always changing, and I want to find good, efficient, safe, ethical ways to roll with the punches. Yes, and that's basically how I've done it the whole time. So
Just so.
maybe I should be more like that. I mean, I do try to like get good systems in place. Like I do have a good accountant and a good bookkeeper, and we have an admin team and a billing team. You know, so those people do kind of like keep me on track. But yes, I think there is an element where I'm sort of like, let's see what happens. Yes, that's a good way. Okay, well,
Yeah.
okay, good. Like, don't neglect your spiritual life.
Okay.
Like, figure out what you believe, and like find that and live out of that. I'm big into life with meaning. So once you figure out like what you think is true and meaningful, like go live that. I think that's the important thing. I'm like, Sam, don't neglect your mental health.
Okay.
I I feel like there's a whole there's a whole other world of self-awareness out there that people are missing out on by not exploring their mental health. I feel like there's so many people who've said to me, there's so much I didn't understand before, or there's just like, I can't believe that I used to not be able to see these things or see this. And I guess I'll also throw in there the whole adage that we therapists talk about like the most important thing in a therapist is finding a therapist that you really connect with. So if you had like a bad therapy experience or you've had bad therapy experiences before, like I would encourage you not to give up, like find a therapist that you connect with. If you find a therapist you connect with and then you don't like therapy, then fine. You know what I mean? But don't don't judge it based off of like a therapist that you didn't vibe.
So like that'd be good.
Yeah, we have a really great article about it on the Heartbonds counseling website on how to find a good therapist for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, just go to www.heartbondscounseling.com. Yeah, there's info about me, about the practice, like our therapists here at the moment are mostly only licensed in Florida, so we can only help people in Florida. But I do coaching for people in all states who are wanting to have a practice. So happy to help. And then, there are going to be developments happening over the next few years. Maybe we'll be able to be counseling people. It was great. Thanks for having me. I think it was great.
what stands out to me about Stacy's story is that Heartbonds counseling was not built from one perfect plan. It was built through one faithful decision at a time. She followed an early interest in psychology. She responded to a calling to serve vulnerable children and families. She moved across the country with limited resources, took risks without knowing exactly how everything would work out, and continued walking through the door that opened in front of her. Over time, one counselor became more than 20. One person's willingness to serve became a place where thousands of people could experience compassion, safety, support, and healing. This is what can happen when we stop waiting until we feel comfortable, till we feel completely ready, and begin faithfully using what God has already placed in our hands. Stacy's story is also a reminder that meaningful work is rarely accomplished alone. We need mentors. We need community. We need people who challenge us, support us, and remind us of the vision when leadership becomes difficult. Most importantly, we cannot become so focused on building a career, a business, a ministry, or a reputation that we neglect our own spiritual and emotional health. Success means very little if we lose ourselves while attempting to achieve it. So let me leave you with this question. What calling, what idea, or what opportunity have you been quietly carrying but have been too afraid to act on? You may not see the entire path yet. Stacy did not. But you do not need to see every step before taking one faithful one, the next faithful one. Thank you again, Stacy, for your leadership, your honesty, and for creating a practice where clients and clinicians can feel valued, supported, and empowered. Thank you all for joining us for this conversation. Please share this episode with someone who is building something meaningful, entering the mental health profession, or trying to find the courage to follow where they believe God is leading them. Remember, stay grounded in truth, be honest about the work, and never underestimate what God can build through one faithful yes. I'm Keenan Crowley, and this is Rooted in Real. Until next time, stay rooted and keep it real. If you want to connect with Stacy and her team, her website will be in the description.